Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to be rebuilding a Toyota Echo engine. I got this from a junkyard. A couple years ago for 250 bucks, and the plan was to rebuild this and then swap the engine that's currently in the Echo. This is Miso, the Savannah Silver Marble Cat. The Echo we currently have has 350,000 miles. It's burning oil like crazy, and we had to park it. So the plan to rebuild this and then do a swap conveniently on a weekend isn't going to work. But this one's already on an engine stand, so I'm just going to go with it, rebuild this, and then do the swap. Make sure if you take on this project, you're doing the right motor. On the front of the intake manifold, there's a code right here. It says 1NZFE. That's the engine model number. So make sure you're doing the right engine. Let's get to it. So anytime through this video, when I am talking about the engine, technically this is the front of the motor, but when you pop your hood to your Echo and lift it up this way, this is the front and your radiator's going right here. I'm going to refer to this as the front throughout the video because that's what's frontwards when it's in the car. So step one is we're removing the intake manifold. It's just 5 locations. Actually, it's 3 bolts and 2 nuts. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's a 12 millimeter. As you're tearing the engine down, keep all your gaskets. So when you get whatever gasket kit or engine kit you're going to use, you can match these up. Make sure you've got, something as close to OEM quality as you can. Also, get some sandwich bags and label all the nuts and bolts. Keep everything organized. Okay, next we're going to take off the exhaust manifold. You got a couple bolts here for the shield, and looks like it's going to be 5 bolts in there. Might not be a bad idea to put some PB blaster on there or something, but we'll see. Oh, you also got this bracket right here. And next, we're going to remove the spark plugs and the valve cover. So for the valve cover, you got 10 millimeter bolts going all the way around. Gonna have to remove this bracket to access that one. Right there, right there, right there. Right there. One right there, and then you've got these 2 in the front. So I took that outer gasket off. There's also circle gaskets that go around each spark plug hole, but these ones are cooked and brittle into the valve cover, but these need to come out. There we go. Okay, next, we're standing in front of the engine again. You're going to come down here. We're going to remove these 3 water pump pulley bolts. You got to stick a screwdriver in one of these holes and brace it against the motor somewhere, and then you can get these 3 loose. Pulley comes off, and then you've got 5 bolts behind that to take the water pump off. Next, right above where the water pump was, we're going to remove the motor mount. Got these 4 bolts right here. I already got these loose, now I can buzz them off with my ratchet. Okay, next we're going to remove the crank pulley. This is the position I put the screwdriver in and used a breaker bar to get that loose. It's a 19 millimeter. Wasn't too bad. Okay, now we're going to remove the timing chain cover, and that's this whole piece right here. There's 15 bolts or nuts going all the way around, and then make sure you get this one in the middle here. You'll notice there's an Allen key hex plug here. Don't even mess with that. So one thing that was holding me up that I wasn't seeing is the, I think this is the VVT oil something sensor. That little bolt right there locks into the cover too. Okay, next we're going to remove the 2 bolts that are the timing chain tensioner, and then we're going to remove the 2 bolts that are the timing chain guide. Okay, next we're standing at the front of the engine again. We're going to remove the camshafts. That's these 2 things right here. What I like what they did from the factory is they coated these. So you can see here it says I1 and E1. I1 means intake side 1, E means exhaust side 1. So you know number 1 is the front of the engine, technically that way, even though we're going this way. I2, so you got intake 1, I2, intake 2, I3, I4, I5, E1, exhaust 1, E2, E3, E4, and E5. So you don't have to worry about getting the camshaft caps mixed up. The thing about taking out camshafts is you don't want to just start buzzing them out wherever, because these are under tension from the spring load that's on them, and you can warp the camshafts. So what you do is you only do a half turn at a time, starting on this side, do a half turn this side, and you start alternating towards the center, and only do a half turn at a time. So it all comes up a little bit at a time together, and then you can take the caps off, take the camshafts out. So I highly recommend taping down those camshaft caps to a piece of cardboard, because you don't want the inside surface to get scratched or messed up. Okay, next we're going to remove the fuel rail and the injectors. You got bolt here, one on the side right there. So the next stage is to remove the head bolts. We're going to be doing it in this pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're going to be doing a quarter turn at a time and then start from the beginning again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So up to this point, I'd forgotten to remove the dipstick. There's a bracket here and a 10mm bolt, and then the dipstick goes right down into that hole. Just take that out, and then you take the shaft of the dipstick and just kind of rotate it in a circle as you're pulling up, and then it just pulls out. It's just an O-ring that it compresses in there and holds that in. But now we are ready to remove the head. Okay, so this is after loosening those 10 bolts. I'm trying to hold still here. Whoops. Okay, next, a tool like that works really well for getting these little washers out. Get all 10 of those out. So here's with the head off. This thing was burning oil like crazy. So we're going to save this gasket because this is the OEM one. We want to make sure we get something comparable, if not better. Okay, now that the head is off, it's time to turn the engine over so we can take off the oil pan. Okay, next, we're going to remove the bottom end of the engine. First step is we're going to remove 9 bolts that attach the bottom to the block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, next we're going to remove that little bolt there and these 2 nuts, and that will let us remove the oil strainer. All right, next we're going to remove these 3 bolts right here. Got to remove this one right here, and then remove the 2 bolts from the engine stand holding the base plate on. So once that oil filter hex is out, you can see there's another bolt down in there, and that's bolting it through to the engine block right there. So that's got to come out. Okay, now it's ready to pry off, and this spot right down here was all I needed with a screwdriver. To focus, and it just popped loose like nothing. So now we can lift the base plate off. So the next step is we're going to remove the pistons and rods. These are the crankshaft caps right here. And your pistons and rods, you can tell which ones they are. You can rotate the crankshaft a little bit. So you got one there, one there, one there, and one there. And these are a 12-point 10 millimeter. Don't use a hex or anything else. Do a 12-point. And we're going to remove one at a time. Remove both bolts. Do each one half a turn at a time and keep going back and forth until they're loose, and then you can remove them by hand, and then you can drop the piston out from under the block. And then put the cap back on that specific connecting rod, because you want those same caps going with the same rods that were on there in the first place, and you won't misplace your bolts either. And the cap should just lift right off. You can see that the bearing stayed in there. I'm going to rotate the crankshaft just a little. And now you can see that the connecting rod is loose. And now we can push it out the bottom. So have your hand below the piston so you can catch it, and just push the rod down without scratching the inside of the cylinder wall as best you can. So nice and slow. Okay, now that the base plate is removed, it's time to remove the crankshaft. You're going to remove these 12-point 12 millimeter bolts, and you're going to do it in a specific pattern. But before we do that, we've got to remove the rear main seal. And that just removes easily. And save that so you can match it up. So the removal sequence, remember, it's just like the camshafts. If you just gun these out quick, you can distort things. So you want to do it in a specific order. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm just going to do a quarter turn at a time, and then just repeat until they're all loose. Okay, last but not least, before we remove them, you'll notice that each cap is numbered with an arrow pointing to the front of the engine. 1, 2, kind of see it, 2, 3's right there, and here's number 4, number 5. So it's impossible to mix these up. Okay, now these crankshaft caps are kind of wedged in there. You can see I got this one somewhat loose, but because they recess into the block a little bit, it's like they're pinched in there. So what you do is I took my thumbs with both hands and pushed that way to kind of pop it loose like that, and did that to each of them. And then a trick you can do is put the bolts back in just so they're kind of just resting in there, and if you could get them up about that high, and you can squeeze, and then you can pull straight up, and that gives you upward pressure pulling these straight up like that. It minimizes your chance of damaging them, but I didn't have to use a mallet or anything doing this method, so there you go. And then you can remove them and do that for each one. Okay, now we can remove the crankshaft, and you just lift straight up and have a tub with a towel in there, because you want to keep this thing covered up and padded so you don't scratch any of the surfaces. Okay, so that's with the engine block torn down. Then on the center one, you'll notice you've got these thrust washers here. They sit in this little groove. So save those to match them up. Oh, I should have worn my gloves. What am I doing? So that is it, you guys. You have successfully disassembled the 1NZ FE engine found in the Toyota Echo, the Yaris, the Scion XB, and XA. On the next video, we're going to be doing parts prep and machine shop visits to get these ready for reassembly, and finding out what size pistons, rods, and bearings we need to reorder, and going over what kinds of gaskets are good, bad, what's risky, what's not risky. And then we'll do the next video of putting this thing back together. So don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching. Hope this helped you out.